Sometimes I wonder if I'm ever gonna make it home again. It's so far out of sight. I really need someone to talk to, and nobody else knows how to comfort me tonight. Snow is cold, rain Across the morning sky, all the birds are leaving. How can they know it's time for them to go? Before the winter fire, we'll still be dreaming. I do not count time. Who knows where the time goes? Who knows where the time goes? Sad, deserted shore, your fickle friends are leaving. But then you know it's time for them to go. But I will still be here. I have no thought of leaving. I do not count the time. Who knows where the time goes? Who knows where the time goes? And I'm not alone while my love is near me, and I know it will be so till it's time to go. So come the storms of winter, and then the birds in spring again. I do not fear the time. Who knows how my love grows? Who knows where the time
When troubles come, my heart burdens me, and I am still and wait here inside till you come and sit by me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. Raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. Raise me up to more than I can be.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today as we remember Lorna, Engwall, and send our affection out to the family as we gather around them in this time. My name is Douglas Engwall. I am Paul's younger brother. There are 3 others, and if we are the younger ones, the other ones are older. So they are up in Michigan and harder for them to travel. So they can't be with us today, but we are going to take the show on the road, or parts of it, and join them up there near the end of the month for a family reunion. And we are gathering together some 90 people to talk about our family and to remember Lorna there as well. Now, I wanted to tell you a little about myself and sort of how I came to be here. After about 40 years of lecturing as a college professor from a podium, I retired and became a minister and a deacon in the Episcopal Church, and now I preach from a pulpit. And we deacons have this bridge that we are supposed to do between the church, the body of the church, and the world. And our role as deacons is to take the needs of the community to the church and then return back into the community. So most of our work is done in hospitals, nursing homes, and out on the street to the homeless. And I believe that Lorna lived out the life of a deacon beautifully. She didn't know that she was a deacon, but she certainly, I would trust her, and probably has been one of the most active people in being a deacon, if that had been her choice. But she had all the attributes of a deacon, the love and the devotion that she showed to her family and to the community around her. But before we develop the message about her impact on the world, I wanted to open up the service with a couple of prayers from the Book of Common Prayer. So join me in prayer. O God of grace and glory, we remember before you this day our sister Lorna. We thank you for giving her to us, her family and friends, to know and to love as a companion on our earthly pilgrimage. In your boundless compassion, console us who mourn. Give us faith to see in death the gate to eternal life, so that in quiet confidence we may continue our course on earth until by your call we are united with those who have gone before. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Father of all, we pray to you for Lorna and for all those whom we love but see no longer. Grant to them eternal rest, that perpetual light shine upon them. May her souls and the souls of all the departed through the mercy of God rest in peace. Amen. So Brother Paul asked me to share a few thoughts. Asking a professor to share a few thoughts is kind of a dangerous thing, but about the impact that Lorna had on the world and her interaction with all kinds of people. Lorna also had strong opinions about important issues and wasn't shy in expressing them in word and deed. And we'll hear about some of those this afternoon. But I'd like to share one reflection, one interaction that Lorna and I had about an ad that was on the Super Bowl this last time. Now, if any of you remember anything about this year's Super Bowl, besides all the shots of that singer in the audience, what was her name? Wish my granddaughter was here. Taylor Swift, of course. But there was one ad that came up that left a lot of people confused. And this was an ad that included foot washing. Does anybody remember that ad? I see some nods, a lot of shaking heads. There were other ads that probably had a bigger impact. But it was the one about foot washing that Lorna and I had a debate about. A debate Lorna won. That's probably no surprise. But in this minute-long ad, there were 12 images, and please don't take your phones out, and please put your phones on silence, put them away for the duration of this. But there were 12 images that showed people in really difficult situations. And some of these were really surreal. Some people thought they were invented by AI, but in fact, they were all taken by a very talented photographer. And it showed people of all different ages, genders and races, washing one another's feet in a variety of settings, in a school hallway, a front yard, a desert landscape, a protest. And the ad opens up, just to give you a couple of the images, in a dining room, and there's a young man with short blonde hair washing the feet of an older man with glasses. You're left to wonder, who are these people as you watch the ads? The next image is a young man in a dark alley with one foot on an overturned milk crate, and a police officer uses a 2-liter soda bottle and a rag to wash the young man's foot. Third image shows a high school hallway and 2 differently clad girls, one pouring water over the feet of another. And a song then starts, a song by INXS. Is that right, Ben? In excess? Okay. So I'm glad I have someone here to correct these imperfections. But the song is Never Tear Us Apart. And it's kind of slowed down as they go through all of the presentations. And at the end, the text, the very end said, Jesus didn't teach hate. He washed feet. And the goal of that Super Bowl ad was to promote kindness, respect, and empathy. And the ad recalled the biblical story of Jesus washing the feet of his disciples. And the question was, did the ad really make the impact that they expected? And Lorna and I had a debate about that. I got the ritual portrayed in foot washing because in my church we wash feet on Maundy Thursday. It's the day before Good Friday. And most of the feet that I had to wash in the years that I served have been pristine, nice and clean. But in the case of Jesus, he's washing the feet of 12 men who've been out on the dusty road. And coming in to have supper, it was usually the job of the lowest servant in the household to wash the feet of all these individuals. So here's Jesus washing the feet of these individuals, his disciples, in an act of love. But the other thing that Jesus does that night is he says, I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you should love one another. By this, everyone will know you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. But this wasn't the first time that Jesus had talked about the importance of loving others. So we might wonder what's new here. You're all familiar with the commandment, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Here Jesus is quoting Hebrew scriptures. And in fact, most religions have a rule similar to this golden rule. This new commandment says we're to love one another as God loves us. It calls us to love that has no bounds and a life that brings us closer to God and to one another. Jesus showed his disciples an example of this love when he washed their feet. So I called Lorna after the Super Bowl just to chat. And she said to me, did you see that ad? She was a little upset about it. She didn't get the ad. She didn't get the message at all. And she asked me, she said, wouldn't the money have been better spent that it cost to mount a Super Bowl ad on providing direct service to these individuals? All right? And I had to say, yes, I had to agree with her. It would have done a lot more, it would have done me no good to disagree with Lorna, and certainly it would have done a lot more good to provide this kind of aid to individuals. And it turns out the audience didn't get the ad either. Most of them were really confused what was going on. And many thought, what is this odd ritual that's going on? So the message didn't have the desired impact, and the money really could have been spent, as Lorna said, on providing tangible assistance. And after another careful viewing of the Super Bowl ad, and please don't do it now, I began to go through each one of the scenes and pause it and think to myself, what would Lorna do here? All right? And it's something you may want to try. And there's one scene that I remember of a very messy kitchen. And there's two women on the floor, one's washing the feet of the other. And I thought, what would Lorna do in that situation? Would she be done washing feet? I thought to myself, no, she'd be washing dishes, right? Because that's the kind of person she was. So I think that Lorna was the kind of person that had really true empathy for people. There are a lot of people who have sympathy for what's going on in people's lives, but Lorna had empathy. She was able to get into another person's situation and provide them with direct aid. And we're going to be hearing about some of those tonight, some of those recipients of that love. Now, whether Lorna knew she was fulfilling this great commandment or not, I don't know. But it didn't really matter to her. And it doesn't matter, I suppose, to me. But that's the kind of person that she was. That's how she lived out her faith. And tonight we're going to hear some people who experienced that faith and that love and give us an opportunity to celebrate her life, a life very well lived. And I really feel that Lorna is still with us. My wife Karen and I were driving over from Rock Falls, and this terrific wind blew up as we were driving Lorna's car. And I thought, she is with us. She's still with us. And she will remain with us for a long time. And what we really need is more people like Lorna doing that kind of work. So if you want to take away anything from this, I would recommend that you find something to do. Find some way to express your love for other people. And that would be the best way that you could honor her memory. Now I'd like to have us sing a hymn. This is found on page 474. Precious Lord, take my hand. A very favorite hymn of Lorna's because it was sung by Elvis. And please stand. be seated. So we put this program together today, about 4 hours ago, around Paul's dining room table. And what we'd like to do is have some people who wanted to say prepared remarks talk first. Oh, that's right, okay. First we're going to have, that's why I have this in large print outline. Thank you, Ben, first we're going to have Jonathan come up and do a reading. Jonathan is Lorna and Paul's oldest son, and he is going to read, I believe, a poem. All right? So please come up, and you can use the podium over there.
Bob McVeigh wrote this. It's called Transition Waltz. Let the spirit grow strong as the body grows old. To right all our wrongs, let Christ rule our soul. A transition waltz is a dance we shall do from the body of old to a spirit of new. All of life's burdens soon passing away, heaven's music will play the transition waltz someday. Life is a flight, it's not like a cage. Shine forth your light and show others the way. Let night bring you smiles, for another day has gone. You've walked one more mile and you've carried a song. Listen close for the song, feel the rhythm of life, for it won't be long till there be no more strife.
Thank you, Jonathan. Now we're going to have Maya. No? Maya? Oh, Ben. I got to get back to my program here. Sorry, folks. I got to start ticking these things off here. First, we're going to have Ben offer a reflection.
You know, sometimes it's okay to make it up as we go along. So I'm Ben, I'm the middle son, and thank you all for coming. It's really amazing to see all of the people, especially knowing we have a whole nother service that we're gonna do, so we all appreciate it. So if you asked my mom her height, she would include a fraction in her answer. This is not a telltale sign that you're a tall person, but to measure my mom by her height would be a large mistake. At 5 foot nothing and 3/8, she stood taller than anyone I've known. It was never hard to know where she stood on any topic. It's fair to say that she was outspoken, opinionated, and probably a bit stubborn. Let's just get rid of probably. She was stubborn. It was to your benefit to have her on your side of an argument or in any situation of need. If she wasn't with you, she was a formidable opponent. I often wondered as a teenager if it was possible to get her to admit defeat. It was not. If she didn't approve of your behavior, she let you know. And this was not unique to her sons, as she believed in equal opportunity for all. So I wasn't here for this. This is a secondhand story, but imagine you're in a bar, and the neighboring table is occupied by a group of leather-clad, we're going to call them a motorcycle gang, although that might be a little loose. But a table full of leather-clad motorcycle riders who are acting really rowdy and cursing really loudly. To the point where they were so loud that no one could really have a conversation around them. So what would you do, right? Ask yourself that just really quickly and answer honestly. You don't have to shout it out or anything, but what would you do? What would most people do? And the answer to that, honestly, is nothing. right? Most people would sit and let that pass. But that's not my mom. So she marched up to the table and she asked them to use their inside voices. So, and that not only shut them up, they all laughed and they welcomed her as a friend, bought her a drink, and by the end of the exchange, they were taking pictures with her. And that sums up my mom as much as any story could. So when she wasn't starting bar fights, she was passionate about her work and volunteerism. She used to tell stories of being surrounded by men at the highest levels of her work. But it really wasn't until I became an adult that I was able to really understand what that required. She had to be smarter than her colleagues. She had to be unflinching, and she was completely dedicated to her work so she could succeed. And she did. You're going to hear more about that from people who know more about that. But I do know that she was well respected, she was respectful of others, and she was loved by many of her colleagues, a few of whom I met earlier. She didn't just wish to see change in the world, she actually worked for it. She had a deep interest in politics and believed wholeheartedly in social justice and equality for everyone. But the most impressive thing about my mom was her commitment to improving the world around her, which dovetails nicely into what you said. She cared for others in need deeply. If she identified a way to help someone, really anyone, she was all in. She was willing to do almost anything in her power, and she did this with no expectation of anything in return. The payoff was in the progress people made in their lives, and she would proudly update me on how well these people were doing. This isn't an exaggeration. As an adult, nearly every phone call with her would include an update on someone that I never met, right? And the progress that they're making in their life. I mean, it's funny, it was so common that I to be honest, I barely even paid attention. It's mom's talking about, okay, but that was just normal, right? And that's not normal, but that was normal for her. So, she would be telling me stories of accompanying someone to court, helping them get their GED, so-and-so needed clothes for a job interview. So and anything that she could provide. I mean, she truly loved helping people. And I think that's why she was on the earth. She also had a tattoo. I just thought you should know that. I know I found a new level of respect for her when I saw it for the first time, and a few of you don't know about it. So there you go. She wanted that to be a secret. So above all else, she loved her family. She offered unconditional love, unwavering support, and patience to all of us. She has been the glue that held together both our immediate and in many ways our extended families through a variety of challenges that life has thrown at us. I skipped something. She loved cooking, baking, and feeding all of us whenever possible. Mostly she loved just having us around, and she did what she could to make that happen. Mom, I'm going to struggle with this last part. I choose not to say goodbye to you. You will be a constant presence in my life. You will be there every time I witness my daughters show grace and compassion to others. You will be on their shoulders when they stand up for themselves or another. And I will hear you yelling from the other side of the room every time I stretch my feet into the armrest of a sofa. And I will feel your anxiety when I leave an exterior door open for longer than 5 seconds because a mouse may run into the house. But most of all, I will miss you. I owe you everything. Love you, Mom. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just wanted, before I introduce Maya, right? I just want to say that towards the end of our time together, we're going to have a time to have an open discussion. People who want to have something to say will be able to do that. So I just want to give you a little warning that that's coming up, so you have a chance to think about what you might like to say. And it'll be a wonderful time. We're kind of calling it a Quaker meeting. If you've ever been to a Quaker meeting, people stand up as the Spirit moves them and speak. And that's how the service is conducted. It happened at my nephew's wedding, and it was really a beautiful, beautiful time. So think about that, and maybe you'd like to join us. I know I have some people that you work with that are already planning. I saw them beforehand. So I have our first speakers already lined up. All right? Thank you for that. So now Maya, please.
Hi, I'm my grandma's granddaughter, her oldest. My grandma was a strong woman. She was strong in the way that she cared. She spent her entire life helping people in need, giving and becoming whatever someone needed most. She always knew if you were struggling. My grandma was strong in the way that she thought. She always voiced her opinion, and sometimes voiced it until you agreed. But she was a strong believer, and when she believed in you, she wouldn't stop until you succeeded. My grandma was strong in the way that she loved. She would do the biggest thing for any stranger. She didn't care where they came from or what they looked like. My grandma loved and treated everybody the same. I know her love for me was unconditional. So, in the words of a strong woman she admired, whatever you choose to do, leave tracks. That means don't just do it for yourself. You will want to leave the world a little better for you having lived. Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
I just wanted to mention, we talked about a reunion that we're having in Michigan in a few weeks with 90 people showing up. That idea came from Lorna, all right? It was a seed that was planted by her, and it took off until people started calling me saying, well, I want to come. You know, I want to be with family. And so it just grew and grew and grew. And it's just a beautiful thing that she got rolling. So it's amazing, the number of people that she touched that way. Well, next we have Beth Rinker, Beth Engwall Rinker, my daughter, who was not making the reunion, unfortunately. Was not making the reunion. She's going to London.
I have a legitimate excuse for missing the
reunion. London or Manistee, Michigan. Really.
When given the choice
it's a tough choice.
I'm here today because I couldn't make the reunion, so. All right, so I don't know how people do this without crying. I'm going to try my best. Okay. Lorna was my aunt, and I grew up knowing her through the annual summer vacation my family would take to Manistee, Michigan every year. I grew to know her through snapshots of 4th of July picnics where the Engwall clan would gather in the dozens. That is to say that my time with her was limited and mostly consisted of conversations surrounded by a collection of others. Not much time to get to know each other on a deeper, more personal level. That all changed for me with Lorna when I dusted off my new, gifted 3 years earlier, never before used sewing machine. In July 2020, think COVID lockdown days, where I decided I was going to attempt to make myself a face mask, because what else are you going to do with all that time, right? Oh yeah. Again, having not touched a sewing machine in over 15 years, since 8th grade home economics, I managed to bundle through the making of the face mask, and I posted my accomplishments on Facebook. Isn't that where everyone goes? I had 5 comments, including one from Lorna that read, quote, "Looks great, Beth. I just discovered a better fitting pattern that is easier to sew. I'll send the link via Messenger," end quote. And so began an unexpected friendship connected through the love of sewing. Lorna became the first person I would share my latest creation with, and she was always supportive and encouraging, telling me I had the skills to take on more challenging projects. Through all my small successes, She continued to encourage me to think bigger. Finally, around 3 years after completing my first sewing project, I decided to make a piece of clothing for myself. I had a work dinner coming up at the zoo in LA, and the tire was zoo-themed. I'd done a search online and noticed nothing I found piqued my interest, so I decided this must be the time to challenge myself. I found a nice pattern made by the company Vogue, maybe some of you know it, who indicated the pattern was easy. And I told Lorna that I may have some questions about how to follow this pattern. In truth, I was super intimidated, spreading out all the pattern details in front of me and trying to figure out how to read and interpret what to me seemed a complicated puzzle. In true Lorna fashion, she wrote, then emailed me a 3-page document on her random thoughts of sewing. She then followed it up with wanting to chat on the phone to speak to some of the more nuanced details. What I realized from reading those random thoughts is that she had taken the time researching YouTube videos related to this pattern so that she could provide me with specific advice on my project. The extra care and concern was touching and showed me that she was truly invested in my success and cared about the outcome. I don't know that these necessarily translate as life lessons, but I wanted to take a moment to pass on some of the wisdom of Lorna that I learned from those random thoughts of sewing. 1, on the matter of Vogue sewing patterns, quality is important. Lorna wrote, quote, I love Vogue patterns because they don't use shortcuts, and the patterns usually have a better fit to them than the cheaper patterns. In the 70s, I made your dad a camel wool leisure jacket with brown leather buttons. I made several of these and loved the challenge as well as the perfect fit of them. The pattern was Vogue. Number 2, take the extra time needed. As Lorna said, your iron is as important as your sewing machine, exclamation point. Press seams open as you work. Number 3, don't underestimate the importance of your sewing needle. Lorna wrote, quote, change your sewing machine needle when you begin a new project and after sewing, in bold, underscored, exclamation point, 8 hours. I usually put in a new needle before I sew a new project. Make sure that your needle size matches your fabric. And let me just say, when I told her I had never changed my needle on my machine, she about fell over. And finally, number 4, there are no shortcuts. As Lorna stressed, quote, make a sample dress from cheap muslin, bold, exclamation point. The purpose of this is to get the fit correct. You only need to do this the first time you use the pattern. It's worth the time and effort, end quote. So I stand before you here today wearing that outfit in celebration of an achievement that wouldn't have been possible without the love of a wonderful person, who helped me in the most beautiful and supportive ways. How strange and fitting that the day I found out of her passing, I was sewing, finishing a project that I had recently shared the beginnings of her with, excited to yet again share with her my most recent creation. I will dearly miss those interactions, but am deeply grateful for our own special connection over the love of sewing.
Thanks so much. Now we're going to move on to some friends. Rita Beard is going to come up and talk about her relationship with Lorna. Rita's probably known Lorna longer than she knew Paul. College roommate, was it? Wonderful. So thanks so much, Rita.
I read once that to keep from crying when you need to speak at a funeral to cause pain in another part of your body. So I'm going to be up here pinching the heck out of my hand to try and get through this. I don't know if it'll work. I never had a sister. Lorna was blessed to grow up with 4. But during college, she gained another one, whether she wanted to or not. We met on the 4th floor of University Plaza dorm at NIU. We became fast friends that year and ended up sharing an apartment our senior year. I do have some stories, but I'm not telling them here. When I ended up getting my first job 30 miles from Prophetstown, we tried to see if we could live together. But those of you in the area here know that the town that's halfway between Prophetstown and Kewanee is Hoople. population 236. So we knew that wasn't going to work. We stood up for each other at each other's weddings, and the obituary was wrong. Lorna and Paul did not start dating in November of 71. They met the night before Christmas break at the end of 71. They didn't start dating until January. 2 weeks later, they were engaged, and they were married less than 3 months after that. We shared maternity clothes from 75 to 82, when between the two of us, we had 6 babies. Granted, we could only share the tops and the shorts because the phone bills back in the 80s and the early 90s, when you paid for long distance calls by the minute, were awful because we couldn't call each other and just talk for 10 minutes. They were usually 45 minutes to an hour or more. Thank God for the invention of cell phones and data packages. The Engwalls and the Beards, we've taken many trips together. I tried to remember them all. I can't. But I remember our first one was a 10-day trip to Florida in 1973, when we each took $300 with us, and we had no credit cards. So we did a trip for $300. Our last trip was in 2019 to Charleston, Hilton Head, in Savannah, when $300 was closer to our daily budget. I thought it was the Western trip, the Western National Park trip that this happened, but thinking back, I think it was actually the Charleston trip. Paul was driving the car, and Lorna was navigating and giving him directions. It was not going well. There was definitely some bickering going on in the front seat. So Paul suggested that she and I trade places, and I could be the navigator. So we did do that, but as soon as I got in the front seat, Lorna leaned forward and informed him that if he thought he was getting an upgrade, he was sorely mistaken, because we were exactly the same. She's been there for me, and I'm sure many of you, through all of life's joys and tragedies. I could always count on Lorna. When I was with my dad, who was receiving treatments at Mayo Clinic for weeks at a time, and I couldn't leave, Lorna drove to Rochester to be with me. When my husband was diagnosed with a long-term cognitive disease several years ago, a friend of mine in St. Louis asked if I was receiving counseling, and I said, no, I have Lorna. She just visited me a month ago. And when one of my daughters heard that she had visited, her comment was, oh, I bet that was really good for your soul. It was. I know that you here in this area have many wonderful stories of her generosity, her compassion, and her friendship. You're so lucky to have Lorna in your midst and your community and your family for so many years. I know that Lorna was instrumental in getting many children and families the support that they needed, and was a friend to many of you. She was my best friend. She was my person, and I will miss her for the rest of my life.
Thank you, Rita. Longtime friends are very important. Now to give us a flavor of Lorna's work experience, I'm going to ask Gary Steiner to come up and talk about some of their connections in the educational field. Thank you, Gary.
Some of you may think that my relationship with Lorna started in the regional office, but that's not really true. It started many years before that with the Morrison Musical Theater Association. Paul was in the band and played in the pits for a while. I played on the other side of Lorna in Fiddler on the Roof. I remember that role. And that's when that relationship started. And it continued to grow. It grew when she was at Bi-County, when she would call and say, "We'd like you to come out and have lunch with us." And Phil, my boss at the time, we'd go out and we'd have lunch with Lorna and the Bi-County students. They put together a skit when they were going to break up Bi-County and Union Grove and move those children to the school districts. It was, probably couldn't do it now, but it was most entertaining. It was it was for the purpose of getting an understanding of children that had special needs. Lorna was a champion of those kids. She loved them, and you could tell that through her everyday actions. And then there was ABC, and then there was the principal at Lincoln School. And from time to time, Lorna would call, asking for assistance and what the regional office could do, and that grew from there. At that point, when I lost my assistant, I was kind of lost and didn't know where to turn. And then Marcia said one day, "Lorna's on the phone." "Oh, she needs to talk." And she says, "Is that position still open at the regional office?" And I said, "Yes, it is." So we met, we had a meeting, and I think the rest is history. I walked down the hall and I said to Paul Cannon, I said, "We just hired Lorna Engwall for our assistant." And he said, "Gary, that means there are only 2 of us in the office." He said, "What are we going to do with the 24 other women that are working here?" And he turned around and smiled and he says, "Good choice, Gary. You will never regret that decision." Well, it'd be about this time that Lorna would grab my suit coat when I was up speaking and would say, "Gary, it's time to sit down. You've said enough." And I feel that tug at this point, but you really can't say enough about Lorna. She was a true friend of education, a champion of the special ed students. She helped many teachers become better teachers. She was our truant officer as assistant. One of those things that she said, "I didn't think I'd have to do this." She came into the office one day and she says, "I don't want your job." And I says, "I don't want yours either." She filled that role. You can tell by those individuals who were partners in the regional office. They're sitting back there. They all loved Lorna, and we loved her. We see this as a true loss. So when you become an assistant regional superintendent, you travel down to Springfield once a month. So Lorna and I would get into the van, and off we'd go. And first day I picked her up, she says, "I got 2 requests." I said, "Okay, what's that?" I said, she says, "You got to get me down here safely and back home." And I said, "Okay, what's the other one?" She says, "Well, you can't break wind." I said, "On the way down or on the way back?" And she says, "Both ways." There were some painful trips, I can tell you. But we developed a real friendship beyond being colleagues on those trips. We talked about family. We talked about Jonathan and Ben and Sam. You were all, for 6 years, a part of my life. which you probably don't realize. She loved you, Paul. She loved her kids. And that was evident in those conversations that we had. So with that, heartbroken, sad, but we'll never forget you. We'll always love you, Lorna.
Brother Paul and I this morning were talking about all the people that shared reflections on Facebook. And it was a way that we could see how her love spread out into the community. And there was one in particular that got my attention as I read it. And this is one by Dominic Gunn. And it was really a beautifully written testament to the effect that Lorna had in this relationship. And so this morning, or at some point in the last couple of days when we put this program together, Paul called Dominic and said, "Would you come and speak at Lorna's memorial?" And he said, "Of course, I'd be happy to do that." So Dominic, if you're with us, please join us.
Just a couple weeks prior to finding out, or to Lorna's passing, I had just gone to lunch with her, and well, she had lunch, I had pancakes, because I like pancakes, and the restaurant didn't have bananas, and Lorna said she was going to go to the store and get a banana for my pancakes. I told her that was okay, and she's the person that I would call anytime I got a phone call like this, anything big or small in my life. Throughout my entire adult life, I would call her. And I actually had met Lorna several years ago when I was getting my GED through the Whiteside Area Education Outreach Program in Sterling. And throughout the years of my adult life, she became like a mother to me. Not just like a mother, she did everything a mother would do, from receiving every phone call, big or small, in my life, to being present for surgeries, getting my tooth pulled, all kinds of things. She showed me what a mother's unconditional love and support felt like. She stayed in my life as a mother figure, and she has been a support and present for the hard times as well as the celebrations in my life. As I said, I called her for everything, how long to cook something, to what I could or couldn't put in the microwave, especially after my wife passed. Lorna's definitely been by my side to help me with everything. And accepting now that both her and my wife are gone, I still can't believe that this is real. With Lorna was always long phone calls for advice, lectures when needed. Proofreading my college essays, which one of those, her and her friend Rita were the topic of. And she was always encouraging me, crying with me, laughing with me, and loving me. This woman embodied the true meaning of a mother to not just her own children, but to others as well. She will be deeply missed. She, alongside my wife, was my biggest fan and cheerleader through the years. Getting through now, losing them both will not be an easy road. I know she'd be noticing all the grammatical errors in this as she read it, but she was always a big fan of my writing and loved the message and content, but cringed at my grammar and punctuation. Love you always, Lorna, until we meet again. Rest in heaven to the mom who chose to mother me in my adult life and accepted me in all my imperfections.
Well, thank you all, those that chose to speak. It takes a lot of courage to do this. I remember at my mother-in-law's funeral, I was the first to speak, and I thought it would go on for like 10 or 15 minutes before she called me up. And it was like 2 minutes, and boom, Doug. And it was hard for me to even speak. So God bless you all for sharing these remarks. Well, now we would like to switch to doing an open mic situation. I can see that we have someone ready with the microphone. So as I said, we're doing a Quaker meeting here. As the Spirit moves you, and I felt the Spirit moving through us today, the thread that we didn't know whether it would appear or not, has weaved through this tapestry of people that talked about her. And it worked. It really worked. So please, if you'd like to say some additional comments, some people from professional life, someone in the back? Please just introduce yourself and
My name is Dale Timmons, and probably unlike most of you, when I think of Lorna, I think of Lorna Voss. And the reason is because much of my years prior to about 12 years of age, my parents lived in Rockford, but every weekend was in Vossville. And we called it Vossville because most of the Voss family lived on a plot of land, and that was pretty much my every weekend. But even though that was a glorious time, Lorna kind of re-entered my life just a little bit later. And that is later, I was invited to go to Lorna and Paul's house for a meal. And during that time, I was going to be introduced to a young lady. And that young lady was Libby Glazier. And let's just say that the dinner and the Trivia Pursuit and the walk afterwards turned out pretty well.
Wonderful.
Because Libby and I have now been married for 37 years. And just to say that Lorna did things that had a lasting effect and gave me certainly among my greatest blessings. So I'm quite appreciative of her and the person that she was.
Thank you so much. Anyone else?
I'm Shelley Thomas, and Lorna was like a mom to me also. She had me come and live with her family and be a part of the family. They moved me in and showed me what a family was supposed to be. I graduated, went to college, became a chef. I have children of my own. If it wasn't for Lorna and Paul, Jonathan, Ben, and Sam, I would not have the family that I have right now. I tried to raise my kids the way Lorna and Paul brought me up. I know I've made lots of mistakes in my life, but she never turned her back to me. They were always there, encouraging me, telling me, everybody makes mistakes, and that she loved me. She got to meet my children. They were 1 pound at birth, so I had lots of questions. That she was always there. And I believe that being in Lorna's life and her being in mine made me a better person. It made me a stronger person. And I have learned in life that I can do whatever comes to mind. And it doesn't matter where I was brought up at. It doesn't matter who my real family was. That family was Lorna and Paul and the boys were my family, and I cannot say enough for everything they have did. I am very blessed that God has brought them into my life. I am very sorry, for them losing Lorna. Those kids meant, Jonathan, Ben, and Sam mean so much to her. Even when we talked on the phone, she would tell me about Ben's girls and what they're doing and singing and stuff. It just felt like they were still all together again, even though we live so far apart. So she will definitely be missed, and I feel like I've lost my mom too. So I just wanted to say I'm sorry, and thank you guys for all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, we have someone in the front here.
Probably speak loud enough for you all to hear me.
Let's turn around, Jeremy.
I'm one of those Engwalls from Manistee.
Oh, no, cast no dispersions on Manistee.
And no, I don't think so, because every summer, it was just a very important time of the year. I got hugs that I waited for all year. And, one thing I always loved about my Aunt Lorna is that she knew me as an individual. I mean, the month that they started dating was the month I was born. Which there's a certain irony there, but Lorna knew me. And a couple important things. I remember her explaining to me why to not use the word retarded in a derogatory way. Because as little kids, you would say stupid things. And, I remember her taking my brother and I aside and saying, and I don't know if I don't know if it clicked in back then, but the importance of respecting people, and just one more thought, and this should lighten the mood a little bit. So when I was about 15 years old, we were all out for dinner, and I remember being in the vestibule of a restaurant. And as a young teenager, I had no zits, none. I had perfect skin. I don't know how that happened. But I remember my Aunt Lorna saying, "Jeremy Douglas," she said, "every teenager needs to go through having zits. Why do you have no zits?" And this year, I was going to take my Aunt Lorna aside and say, around 50, I started getting this stuff on my face, and I had to look real close, like, what's... And so I was going to take her aside and say, well, it was 30 years after my teens, but here you go, Aunt Lorna. So we're going to miss her. We're going to miss those yearly summer times. She meant a ton to me. She meant a lot to me.
Thank you, Jeremy. Jeremy showed up as a surprise to me. I barely recognized him in the back. Because when you meet somebody you don't expect to see in a particular location, and you wonder, how are they here? Jeremy and Leanna, it was such a wonderful, wonderful treat to see you guys today. Anyone else?
I have so many stories. First of all, every once in a while my mom will say, "You're just like your Aunt Lorna." And I think, thank you, right? Thank you for that. I have some funny stories. Ones that I can tell because I'm not her child. We traveled to France and Spain together, Mom and Lorna, and the other Rita in her life. Was it your friend's mom, Rita, or something? Sam went along. And we had a blast. It was so fun. But there was one time when Aunt Lorna needed to use the bathroom, and there were no bathrooms around. I have a picture of it, by the way. And she snuck into the woods, and as she snuck into the woods, she turned to me and she said, "Don't you dare make a scene." And I said, "Don't you dare tell me what to do." And so when she came sneaking out of the woods with her toilet paper in her hand, I took a picture, and I have it. Then Dad was having when he had bladder cancer. Mom and I were there, and Lorna was there, and she needed to use the restroom. And she was gone for a really long time, uncomfortably a long amount of time. And I was like, "Was she okay? I need to check on her." But she came back, and she was laughing. And do you remember this? She said, "I was in the bathroom, and this music came on, and I had to dance with Bobby in the bathroom." So she was jitterbugging in the bathroom, in the hospital, by herself, while my dad was having surgery. That was her. Like, I always thought she was really funny. Finally, this morning, as I was thinking about her, I really just went around my house and started opening every drawer and pulling everything out. And I took this amazing picture of all the things that my Aunt Lorna made for me from since I was a child. It's unbelievable. From Cabbage Patch dolls with porcelain heads, for all the nieces, for a while there, you guys remember, she was in she'd show up at Christmas with a bag full of little tiny kitchen gadgets, fancy peelers and things to make eggs in I've never used. Maybe we can talk. Okay, you can give me. And to family history quilts, to bags that she recently quilted because she knows I'm a Frida Kahlo fan. She made these amazing, just cool stuff. And I'm really grateful that she treasured family history and she passed it along in those kinds of ways. And so anytime you want to tell me I'm acting like my Aunt Lorna, you go ahead and do it, okay? Because I love her stubbornness. I will miss it. I love her opinions. I will miss them. But just to hear these stories and see how many lives were touched by her, she left a legacy. Mm-hmm. And I'm proud to call her aunt.
Thanks so much. One more?
I'm Don Workins from Provincetown, Illinois. I had the opportunity to meet the bosses back in 64, 5-ish. I lived right next door to them. And Lorna and her family was a blessing to me. I appreciated knowing her all those years. I lost track of them because I moved to Provincetown. But then when I found out she married Engwall and came to Provincetown, Linden, I got a chance to know she was close by. I always thought a lot of the bosses. And they say that God is good all the time. And I'm just honored to know her and her family. And you have my blessings to the family. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there someone else who wanted to speak? Okay, yeah.
Okay, so I don't do public speaking at all, so here we go. I'm an ER nurse and was, at the height of COVID, was working at a rural community hospital, and all our supplies were shipped to Chicago where the need was greater. So we had nothing but the thin paper mask, so I called Lorna and I said, "Can you make me some masks? We have nothing." We were wearing this paper day in, day out. And so I drove down there and she started sketching while on the porch, social distancing with a bottle of wine. And we came up with kind of a plan, and she brought me the prototypes, and didn't quite work for some of her doctors, so it went back. And we did this 3 or 4 times, and literally she called me and said, I've got it, they're done. And she met me at Walmart as I was on my way to work and delivered bags and bags. But not only were they masks, they were, she got some company to donate 3M filter paper to slide in and out. She'd gotten some stuff from a coffee company so we could pinch our noses. They tied just the way. And then weeks after weeks, I would get calls from like random people from Rockford, from Freeport, saying, please meet me in the parking lot. She involved all these quilters from all over to help us out. So our hospital got fitted with them, all of our clinics, all of the nursing homes, all of our surgeons were using them, and then they filtered into Rockford. So she made a difference.
Thanks so much. Now we'd like to have a special song. Sam Engwall is going to be singing, and he's going to be accompanied by Jim Rader on guitar and Aaron Johnson on bass. These were the gentlemen who, with Paul, made up the connection for years, and I always enjoyed when I came down to visit going to hear them, and one time I was actually able to sing with them. So it's a wonderful fellowship. And Sam's going to be singing I'll Fly Away. Join applause for all the folks who are with us today. Now we come to the, we were going to have a receiving line at the end of the service, but I think that pretty much happened at the beginning of the service. So I wanted to thank the church for providing us this space and for all the support that we got from the folks here that reached out and embraced us as we put this program together. It was a wonderful, wonderful time to see the community coming together. And I'd like to end with a dismissal that we use in my church, and that is, let us go forth to love and serve the Lord. So I thought would be fitting for a Lord. Love and serve the Lord. And your response is, thanks be to God. Let us go forth to love and serve the Lord. Thanks be to God. Is there music? Or are you?